Cityof Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda joins us now for more on the load reduction story. Mayor, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Good evening, Tabo, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you for having me.
You visited some power stations. You are concerned about the state of the infrastructure. You are putting it to the fact that there's intense pressure that could be coming on because of three things. One, densely populated area, more migration, people coming in. Two, illegal connections that are a theft of electricity really via those who are connecting to the grid and those who are bypassing the meters. And three, you're saying it is a lack of education on electricity use. Now, why don't we listen to that and say, you've known this, or at least City Power has made you aware of this 9 months ago, already in 2023 in September. City Power said its infrastructure is under pressure. Its infrastructure is on the verge, in fact, is the word that they use, of collapse because of then intense load shedding and a lack of maintenance. What have you done in the 9 months to maintain the system?
No, thank you very much, Tabo. Look, in the city of Johannesburg, and especially when it comes to capital expenditure projects, we rely heavily on the budget that is being approved to define the scope in which we are able to implement the projects. I mean, we have launched substations in Vleerhof, we have launched microgrids, we have launched the turbine-powered substations as well. There's another one that we are going to commission. But in this regard, it's not an issue of supply and demand. It's an issue of the infrastructure and the load that we are experiencing. Now, as you have correctly stated in your summary, the fact that illegal connections play a very critical role in the strain that our infrastructure is currently experiencing. But that is on the basis of the type of connections that our residents use that would ordinarily cause that particular strain. Yeah. But then the population density and the inward migration also equally plays a critical role in the fact that the city had not planned retrospectively for what it's currently experiencing, but also the disparities that exist in the approval of plans for individual households that then ultimately become apartment complexes or complexes where there are multiple dwellings that have been established there. Yeah. So it's quite a significant amount of contributing factors that would then cause this particular burden on our infrastructure. But just to also indicate the fact that City Power had started on the 23rd of May communicating the possibility of the entity having to implement load reduction. And they've been communicating ever since, appealing, engaging, and ensuring that we are able to avert this possible challenge that we would face should it be that the city of Johannesburg encounters the infrastructure collapse that we had alluded to. Yeah.
Now, there's some councillors in council who'd say one thing that you're failing to mention in those reasons that you're not being transparent about is the fact that in the 9 months that I'm talking about, since the time the City Power said there is a lack of maintenance, you have actually not engaged in proper maintenance. And that could be squarely put at the door of the city as a failure. How many substations are currently out of service that you have not maintained?
I wouldn't say that is entirely correct. The fact that we've neglected the maintenance of our infrastructure, because as I had alluded to, our primary objective was to ensure that we increase the capacity of our infrastructure, but equally so, responding to the theft and vandalism that has been ongoing in many of our communities. We do address the issue of infrastructure, the backlog that has been there. And as you would have seen, the budget this particular financial year has been redirected in the main towards our three service entities, City Power being the major priority. So councillors need to be, in fact, brought into proper confidence, and I will be engaging with them before we have an official media briefing on the various mechanisms that we will use to ensure that the load reduction that we have made reference to is not one that is going to last a long period of time, but it's an interim measure whilst we focus more on the critical aspect of what we need to do, which is bylaw enforcement and the removal of illegal connections.
So are you denying the fact that there are plants or power plants across the city that are sitting idling at this particular point because, one, you've lost your biggest revenue from middle to the upper class income earners who have put solar systems onto their systems, large power users who are going off the grid, and therefore you are losing much needed income to the city, and hence you are unable to meet the maintenance requirements?
I think the issue of of our clients moving off the grid and the infrastructure of the city are unrelated subject matters that need to be discussed separately. The issue of our clients going on solar-powered energy is one aspect. Yes, it has a significant impact on our revenue in City Power, but that does not impede the repairs and maintenance that the City of Johannesburg has been undertaking in many of the substations that we have. In fact, as alluded to, I have in the past financial year launched one substation that is brand new. We've launched one microgrid, and a microgrid is a very interesting concept that we are using to insulate areas that are unable to afford the electricity, the base electricity required to run big businesses, but also the turbine power substation that I had alluded to was recommissioned, and we are going to launch another substation in El Dorado Park during the course of the week. So the city has been able to in fact respond to the issue of capacity generation and ensuring that we maintain some level of balance in our supply of electricity in the city of Johannesburg.
How much pressure is that going to reduce in percentage terms?
In terms of the current situation that we are faced with,
yes,
like I had alluded to, it's a combination of processes that need to unfold, and it's multidisciplinary in nature. As indicated, bylaw enforcement is critical because we have a mushrooming number of estates that are like new developments in the city of Johannesburg, and some of them are non-compliant. But in the main, it's individual residential households that are transforming into either student accommodations or social housing dwellings within the city. And that is not what they were intended for. So those are the areas that we are targeting to ensure that we enforce the bylaws that are required and we get those particular clients to actually comply. But the substations that have been established are in fact intended to stabilize the grid and ensure that, like I said, the supply of electricity is sufficient.
We get that and we accept that you're saying load limiting is to protect the integrity of the grid. The challenge is that you are saying let us not be punitive to folks who are illegally connecting, right? And yet make those who are connected properly and are paying to suffer. So they're saying, why not then deal with those who are illegally connected as opposed to making all of us suffer?
So the reason why I said the fact that we are not saying that we are being punitive as the city of Johannesburg is because there is quite a significant amount of stakeholder engagement that is ongoing we are allowing our residents an opportunity to comply. But equally so, like I said, City Power started communicating this issue on the 23rd. Now what we are going to do is to check and verify. But in communities where we know that these particular challenges are long-standing and there have been multiple engagements with City Power and there's non-compliant whatsoever, we are going to in fact implement in the immediate the disconnection as well as the removal of those illegal connections. So we are taking an approach that would enable us to engage in a more cohesive approach towards resolving this particular challenge, because even those that have connected to the grid illegally equally rely on the electricity for a wide variety of issues. So it's our responsibility as government to educate them on exactly what are the steps that they need to take, but also ensure that we enforce the bylaws that are required so that we do not encounter the same problem in the future.
So the people that we speak to are saying, but the people who connect, the people who bypass these meters are your very same officials, are people who work for you. What are you doing about that?
No, thank you very much. And I had highlighted this earlier on to say that we are keeping a close eye on our service providers that are the ones that we deploy for the much needed assistance in terms of whether the replacement of a cable or to do a disconnection, that it's the very same people that would ultimately go back into the very same area and reconnect, or it's the very same people that would go into the same area and remove the cables that have been installed. So our SCADA systems they enable us to keep a closer eye on the electricity consumption and the time period in terms of monitoring the service providers deployed in specific areas, so that we can be able to institute investigations and ensure that we are able to curb the scourge that we are currently faced with.
So councillors are calling on you, for example, to be a little bit more transparent about the money is being owed by departments, which you had promised to tackle, but it seems you have not done so.
I don't think I understand the question, Tabo.
Money is being owed to City Power by government departments.
So, like you would have seen, Eskom itself owes us about 3.5 billion. And the only time that particular amount came to the fore is when they took the city of Johannesburg to court on a 1 billion debt that we were due to pay in about 28 days' time. So it's not just isolated to Eskom, but there are a number of departments that do owe the city money. For argument's sake, the hospitals that are in the city of Johannesburg, but I have then indicated that the switching off, or rather the disconnection of hospitals and other critical institutions should be, in fact, the ultimate last resort. We should engage in robust and constructive engagement enough to demonstrate the impact that non-payment has on the power utilities' ability to perform its function. So we are at this point unable to say we'll go to Helen Joseph because they owe us, let's say for argument's sake, 100 million and switch them off. What then happens to the service in which they are responsible for? So we are continuously engaging other government departments so that we have a very solid intergovernmental relations that would enable the smooth operations of whichever functions on any government sphere, without disruptions or without having to take each other to court or taking punitive decisions that would ultimately affect our residents.
But I thought the line of communication between you and the Premier were now clear and open. You could be able to talk about these things. You could call a meeting, sit around the table with him and say, your Department of Health is owing me 100 million and it's impacting on my maintenance program for my infrastructure?
No, indeed, you're correct. And those discussions do happen. The payments are being made, but it's not that there's money that is available all the time. We reach an agreement, a settlement agreement, whereby it's a periodic payment that is being made to the utility, City Power, for the services that it would have rendered. I mean, it's a positive outcome of an engagement and a relationship that is forged in the best interest of our residents.
4.2 billion, what you've budgeted for the next 3 years for infrastructure projects at City Power. Do you think that's enough?
It is not enough. It is not enough. So much so that you would recall that we also have an agreement with the Department of Cogta in the province for City Power to be a special purpose vehicle whereby we assist other municipalities that are within the Gauteng province with certain challenges they have in relation to electricity generation as well as the supply of electricity itself. So that is an alternative revenue generating stream that has been established by City Power to ensure that we are also able to generate revenue elsewhere whilst focusing on the challenges that we have in the city itself.
Mayor, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on and that clarity there. That has been provided by the City of Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda on the work that he's doing, certainly to avert this load reduction, saying it's going to be temporary with all the measures that they are putting in place.